Welcome to Game Changers, the future of play, where we explore the intersection of AI, gaming, and the future of play. I'm Sarah Ramoz, and today we're joined by Callum Godfrey, former head of studio and third-party publishing at nDreams. He's also worked at studios such as Wargaming, Kwalee, and is a seasoned expert in the gaming industry with a focus on tech and innovation. In this episode, we'll dive into how AI is shaping the gaming landscape, the concept of good versus bad AI, and how AI can help gaming teams focus on what they love, rather than getting bogged down with admin tasks. Callum will share his insights into potential threats and opportunities AI presents for game studios, as well as developers. Hi, Callum, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Sarah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's jump right in, and I'd like to start with a quick career snapshot. So I'll ask you a couple of questions about yourself. How did you first get into the gaming industry, and what's your journey been like so far?
It's hard to remember because it was so long ago. I got into video gaming completely by accident, actually. As a kid growing up, I loved two things. I loved playing rugby and I loved video games. And I was supposed to be a professional rugby player. I wanted to go and do that professionally. I played for my national team. I had a scholarship to go and play professionally, but got a horrible knee injury when I was 17 years old that ended that career. However, there was an opportunity to switch to my other talent, to my other passion, because I lived in the same town that Codemasters, the video game developer, was based in. It was 5 minutes from where I was living with my parents at the time as a 17-year-old kid. So I applied for a summer testing job and never left the industry. So been doing this now for 26 and a half years. And in that time, I've seen a hell of a lot of changes. In some ways, it feels like a completely different industry than it did in the very late 90s. But the core essence of it, the creativity, the passion, the values that bind all the people in the games industry together are still there, which is fantastic. It's just we've seen the technology, the platforms it exists on, the reach that it has go stratospherically through the roof now compared to what it was in the late 90s. But fingers crossed, it's an industry I want to stay part of until I retire in a few years' time.
That's very interesting. Wow, rugby to gaming industry.
Yeah,
Very
yeah,
cool.
competitive guy by nature.
That's great. You worked in various roles within the industry. What drew you to exploring AI's impact on gaming?
Yeah, so a lot of my time in the games industry has been focused around the skill set of production, project management, helping the teams work more effectively. So the production skill set, I've always looked at it as the act of making the teams more productive, hence the name production. And I think the onset of AI inside the gaming industry has been one way to try and empower teams to spend more time doing creative stuff, more times doing the things they got into the industry to do, more times doing the things that gives them the fire and the passion to get out of bed every morning and just keep making great content, and less time doing the less pleasant side of things, the more boring administrative tasks, the more mundane things that you don't hire a 3D artist to have them sit down writing emails for 12 hours a week, right? You hire them to make 3D content. Take away the boring stuff, let them focus on the good stuff. And I think that's what's really got me very excited about AI as a part of the games industry. It's just the productivity value that it can bring to smaller teams.
Very good. I love that. So what's one of the most rewarding aspects of your work when it comes to game development and tech?
Well, as well as playing rugby and and making video games, I also like to entertain people. I sing, I play guitar. I've always been sort of a natural entertainer. And I love the fact that video gaming is now mainstream enough that it's considered proper entertainment by people. I remember back in 2014 when I joined King, the guys that make Candy Crush, going to their London office every day on the London Underground and just seeing people on the Underground playing Candy Crush or playing other mobile games and realizing this is now a real mainstream thing. It's not just kids in their bedrooms with consoles anymore or PC gamers playing at home. It's everywhere. Mobile revolutionized where people play games, who plays games. People who wouldn't consider themselves a gamer are now playing games probably as regularly as some hardcore gamers are. And it's just wonderful to see that transition to a mass market audience that's really engaged and connected to the product.
Very cool. Candy Crush. That's interesting. How was that?
It was great. I mean, being at King just as Candy Crush went massive was just a fantastic experience. It was kind of, you want to pop champagne corks every single day because there was a new milestone or fantastic achievement to be proud of.
Very cool. I love that. All right, so let's jump right into the core insights segment. So let me ask you a few questions here. We're
Go
seeing a
for it.
lot of conversations around AI in gaming. What trends do you see that are currently impacting the industry, especially when it comes to AI?
Yeah, it's a really prescient question because a lot of the stuff you read online nowadays, there's this kind of vibe or general feeling that AI is a negative thing inside the games industry. It's perceived as a thing that is, infringing copyright or taking away people's authenticity, taking away people's autonomy, and even in some cases replacing jobs. And I think that's one of the hot trend topics. But I'm going to park some of that because I suspect we'll get into that later. Um, but having recently been looking for a job, looking for my next opportunity, one of the things that's really struck me inside the games industry is that a lot of the back office functions are now very AI dominated. So things that you don't see as the consumer, things that the player never sees, are now starting to have more AI uptake. So things like finance teams, recruitment, your operations teams, they're leaning more into AI, perhaps slightly more aggressively or with greater speed than the creative side of the games industry is. So hopefully, for those of us who think AI is the future, that's the thin end of the wedge that starts to prove AI is a positive thing, and the rest of the games industry will start adopting and adapting to that soon.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I think that's what we see too, is a lot more of the back office functions being handled
Yeah,
by AI.
I think on that as well, Sarah, it kind of goes with the sort of the fear around AI inside the games industry. It goes hand in hand with the recent unemployment we've seen, which is also a trend that's been happening in the games industry. A lot of studio shutdowns, a lot of studios facing hard times. There's a lot of great talent out there looking to get back into the games industry. So there are very few roles available because many companies at the moment aren't hiring because they've been having a bit of a downturn, which makes the perceived threat of AI even more exaggerated than it actually is. The worry that it makes an already small pool of jobs even smaller as companies move to AI as an alternative to paying someone for a position.
Gotcha, gotcha. So that
Yeah,
leads into the next question. Oh, go ahead, Diego.
very true. No, sorry, just wanted to jump in. Like, if I obviously I'm very partial, right? Because the company we have been in AI for forever,
Yeah,
right? But I have to say, as a grandfather, right? Games are typically, not always, but typically are addressing a younger audience. And so one of the things I would be concerned about is to make sure that whatever AI application is out there that is serving a gaming audience, it's one that has very strong guardrails, right? Because you have the responsibility. I mean, even if the AI assistant is just designed to provide support, you don't want
yeah,
to engage in any conversation that is outside the boundaries of anything that is super safe, right? For the kids that are potentially going to interact with it. So there is the aspect of, yes, AI, the concern of, is it going to take my job away, but also, as it's being used by my kids, is it safe enough? Is it designed well enough? So I think that's going to be a
mhm.
super important thing that needs to be taken into consideration.
On the flip side of that, Diego, I guess that as AI models get better and smarter at detecting speech patterns or ways people tend to communicate or common phrases and words they use, it could start building up a portfolio of knowing if this person is of a certain age demographic and start just not giving them content or not engaging with them in a way that would be, I guess, a worry for you as a grandparent.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And you can definitely design systems that are just very focused on, like, if I create an AI assistant that is designed to support a game, you can pretty much design it in such a way that it doesn't talk about anything else, right?
Yeah,
Anything else, why start, deciding, having conversation about, romantic problems of a teenager, right?
yeah,
There's no space for that. So at that point, the AI assistant should change subject, and yeah,
yeah. Steer it to safety. Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a great segue into the next question. So, Callum, tell us, what's your definition of good AI and bad AI in the context of game development?
Yeah, I sort of struggle with this a little bit in that I feel like as an industry, we've been using AI for a long time. We just didn't call it AI. For a long time, we called it machine learning. So most common places where we were using machine learning was around things like data and analytics. So as people are playing their video games on their phones, on their consoles, their PCs, wherever, they're sending little bits of data back to the game publisher or the game developer, telling them how the player is consuming their product, what they're doing, where they're spending time, which things they're engaging with. And for years, almost decades at this point, we've been collecting all that data and been running machine analysis on that to help it find patterns, find trends, find things that we can use to optimize the game to make it more enjoyable for the players. That's essentially what a lot of AI is doing right now, right? It's looking for patterns, it's looking for trends, it's building up models that help you understand behaviors of people. And in the games industry, I'd argue we've been using that for a long time and are perhaps pioneers of it, and are now somewhat ironically turning on our own tools and creations and going, we don't like it now, it's labeled as AI. So I sort of broadly define good and bad, if those are even the right terms for it, good and bad into generative AI, and then sort of supplemental AI that helps to supplement your existing skill sets. So in the context of game development, I think I'd go out on a limb and say that most people who are talking about the bad AI are talking about generative AI. Things that are going out there, they're stealing content from other people, they're scraping websites, they're not citing their sources, they're not crediting people where it's due for the inspiration that their work has had on the finished product that it's generating. So things where it goes and it tries to make you a video, it tries to make you an image, it tries to make you a sound effect. Those are what I think would traditionally in a short time window, those are things I think get labeled as the bad AI by the games industry at large. And I can see why, although I think there's good elements to the bad AI, the ability for small teams to quickly build prototypes, to test things out without having to spend a lot of time and a lot of money getting to finding the fun, seeing if something actually has a potential to go further. And particularly, I think the quote unquote bad AI is going to be a really powerful game changer for doing things like testing different creative concepts for marketing teams. One of the biggest challenges I've always had in my career is to find a way to communicate to your users what you want them to understand about your product in a really compelling, really interesting way is incredibly time consuming and incredibly costly. You have to hire a team of people to actually make these little videos that you see on YouTube, you see on Instagram and so on. And you want to try and get as many different ones out of there as possible so you can test which angles, which creatives, which different options work best for your audience. And doing that requires a volume of assets that it's really hard to create with actual in-house teams. AI could make that in minutes for you. You can test them fairly cheaply, see which one works, and then hand it over to a skilled professional to build the finished product based on that insights and that data. The good AI, I would call things that now help us as developers work more productively. And that can be everything from automated note taking after meetings. There are some fantastic tools out there now. Most digital meeting platforms have some sort of an inbuilt note taker, which sends you actions, notes, summaries, agreements. I forget what platform I was using a couple of weeks ago, but there was one where it even told you like mood sentiment by tracking people's smiles or tracking their faces and reactions during the call, which was super cute. I liked it. Didn't agree with it, but I liked it. Things like code sharpeners, right? Tools that help coders to find little problems in their code or find little things they can optimize slightly better. Really, really fantastic addition for programmers. And I think probably the biggest one that excites me as a producer, someone who's really interested in project management, is stuff that automates the admin side of work. I can't tell you, Sarah, how many hours of my life I've wasted trying to convince people just put an update on your ticket into Jira, update your tasks in Asana. I feel a bit like a nagging old grandma sometimes, telling my team to do the admin work. Anything that means the team has to spend less time doing the admin, fantastic, because it increases their morale. It makes them feel less like I'm a bit of a pain in the butt for nagging them all the time, increases the accuracy of the things we're getting through from them, and most importantly, gives them more time making content. I think, the big game changer in AI for me, the productivity side, the time saving for people to do the things they really want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love what you said about the time savings. And I think all of us are kind of shifting in our minds to, instead of, oh, look at this list of tedious tasks, or thinking,
Yes.
How can AI help me push through this so that I can focus on what I really want to work on, right?
Yeah. 100%. Or even AI can tell you, well, which tasks are actually even really that important. You've got 10 things on your to-do list this week. Do the 5 that matter. The 5 that don't can come whenever. Like it's really great for just helping prioritization as well as just throughput of work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the point you also made about using the AI to understand what your audience is interested in and giving them the information. So kind of like pre-launch type of AI, right? We've heard that from a lot of gaming studios, that that's really compelling to be able to understand, where people are in the buying process or the learning process about a new game even, and then
100%.
being able to retrofit.
Yeah, why would you spend months and months and months and potentially millions of dollars building something to test it with people when you could spend, a few minutes in front of a prompt and just quickly get something out there, show people a rough idea for what it is, and have them tell you right there and then, are you interested in this? Save so much time, so much money, and so much heartache.
Yeah, absolutely. Next question, how can smaller indie studios use AI to their advantage without feeling overwhelmed by the technology? This one is really interesting. In the gaming industry, there are so many smaller kind of independent software vendors versus the big ones. How can they use AI?
Yeah, I think this is where smaller indie studios can really leverage AI a lot more than big studios can. Because number one, they can afford to take risks at a sort of faster speed than most bigger studios can. They also kind of need to do things to keep punching up above their weight. And I think where AI really helps them to do that is very much around finding the core faster. For smaller studios, they don't make, games that last 200 hours or have massive live operations or are going to live for years and scale to millions and millions of players. Nobody really plans for that at a small indie studio. What they're really looking to do is find the thing that's innovative, find the thing that's engaging and interesting, get that out to players in the most polished possible way, and charge them a price point for it they feel is justified. With the advent of AI, you can do the finding the fun faster. You can test concepts faster. You can test art styles faster. You can use AI as a way to basically fast track the small team you have to work much more efficiently towards a specifically known goal rather than a theoretical, we think this is the right thing to do kind of goal. So your chances of success are higher because you've got much more insight at the start. You're not planning blind. I think also there's a real opportunity for smaller studios to use AI to supplement skills that are kind of more specialist or niche, um, which allows them to create games that are a little bit richer, a little bit more full content. So a good example that always comes to my mind is if you're thinking about video games with characters in, character animation is incredibly technically complex. You've got to rig the character, you've got to weight it, you've got to animate it. There are all kinds of glitches and bugs that come from that. And now there are so many great tools that allow you to not need an animator if your game is designed to be simple enough that it doesn't need full-blown, complex animations or complex characters. You can get by with AI-generated stuff very, very, very effectively. And in the right kinds of games, players are never going to know. I guess the sort of threat is don't let AI suddenly start changing your focus on what you want to deliver. And I've seen this from a bunch of people as they've learned new skills, not even with AI, just learned natural new skills themselves as part of their career development. They learn a new thing and go, oh, and now I can apply this to our game. And suddenly we can have this whole new set of features. No, don't let feature creep or scope creep be a thing that AI lets you do. Just because it does make it easier for you to add new things, stay focused. Don't suddenly blow your game into a big bloated production just because you've got the ability to do things. Stay focused on what your audience wants.
That's great. And I love that phrase, find the fun faster. I'm going to make a note of that. That's a good one. And last question for me, and Tony's going to jump into the rapid fire section. What are some practical ways studios can implement AI to streamline their workflow or improve the player experience without sacrificing the human touch in game design?
I love the way you phrase that, the human touch in game design, because that's ultimately what I want to get across is that humans are still needed to make great creative things.
Right.
As I've said a couple of times, I think it really comes down to taking away the mundane. So the most important thing for me is giving people time back to invest that time into making the game itself better, or to invest that time into understanding why the game they've been making isn't working. So simple stuff like automated note taking, cover that already, but it's just so great to have tools that take notes after a meeting. I remember early in my career when I was an associate producer, I'd kind of be invited along as the designated note taker for meetings, and I'd have to be the person who sent out the email summary, the actions, who said what, when things were agreed to be done by. Now it's instantaneous and it's fantastic. I think also tools that help production staff or smaller teams that don't have a producer analyze trends or patterns in their workflows is really, really useful. There's a lot of areas inside projects where it can be really tricky to understand where your bottlenecks are, where your problems are coming from. So if you have your AI looking at different parts of your project based on different tags or different labels you've got set up inside your project tracking systems, or even different individual contributors to your project, you can start to find trends and patterns now with AI that tell you, hey, whenever you do technical art project work, that's 30% underestimated by the team consistently. Or, hey, whenever this particular artist is asked to do animation tasks, they always massively underestimate, or they always end up having to go back into production a couple of times until they finally get it right. It can help you find trends, help you find things that could be little things you can fix either through reallocation of work or allowing yourself more time or spending more time demystifying what the product is looking for it to do. But having personally started playing around with some of this stuff myself, the one thing I think that AI is super, super powerful at is the one thing that always, always causes issues inside development teams, which is breaking a design document down into actual pieces of work inside your product backlog. Nobody wants to do it. Somebody always has to do it. Usually it was the producer or the product manager. And now I've started looking at some AI tools that basically can take the entire game design document or a feature from the game design document and break it down into a set of deliverables. I want a feature that does this so that player X can do these things. And so we as a developer understand what the player's doing. Does all that really, really nicely, needs very little manual editing afterwards. And the one I've been looking at automatically hyperlinks out to your Atlassian Confluence pages and understands, where the source materials are from. Really fantastic, really, really fantastic. And I think those kind of things that take away the boring, stupid stuff that nobody wants to do. Nobody got into the games industry to spend 4 hours a day copy and pasting snippets from a wiki page into a different document so that the developers knew exactly which bit they were looking for. That stuff to me is really exciting because it means the talented teams can do so much more with their day.
I love that. Very actionable use cases that I think a lot of students are going to find really helpful.
I hope so.
Thanks, Callum.
Callum, thank you so much for your insights and your time. We've got a couple more kind of fun, light questions for you. We call this our rapid fire segment. So these ones are just a little bit more fun. And then Sarah will close us out. So
Cool.
What is your favorite video game of all time and why?
That is such an easy one, and it's going to make me sound like such a wuss when I answer this. So Final Fantasy VIII. It was the first video game I ever played where I had such an emotional connection to the storyline that I cried while I was playing it. I loved it. It really there's a moment where Squall and Renoa kind of get reunited and they kiss, and it's just beautiful. It just even now it just makes me feel wonderfully. It's beautiful. I can't even articulate why. It's a game I loved so much that I spent 421 hours playing it to get 100% of all the things in that game unlocked. And you know what? 421 hours well spent. Not a single regret.
I love that. Well, yeah, you're kind of living within the storyline and you get to witness it, so much longer than a movie or anything.
Absolutely right. Anyone who says games aren't good value for money, I defy you to tell me that what $40 spent for 421 hours of entertainment, that's a bargain.
Yeah, seriously. What's one AI tool or technology in gaming that you're excited about right now?
For me particularly, having seen how difficult it is or how common it is that you have to outsource things like animation, I think animation is the area I'm going to choose for this one. Specifically because it's so complex and it requires so many different people to be involved in it. And it's one of those things where as soon as you animate a character, you bring it to life, and it makes it much easier for people to give you subjective feedback on it rather than objective feedback. Oh, I don't like this animation because of X, right? It becomes more about a feeling thing rather than it just does what it's supposed to do. So animation for me is one area that I think AI is making great strides with. There are some fantastic tools that I've been sort of tinkering around with recently. So one is Plask, Plask, which basically means that you can take movie footage and turn that into an animation that you can apply to a rigged character. So you don't have to spend ages and ages and ages now cleaning up motion capture data, which used to be very costly and very time expensive. So it just takes movie footage, and you can then use that in kind of really cool, interesting ways. You could use a camcorder at home or a camera phone at home, record yourself, and you become the motion capture artist at that point. It's also starting to do, I think, some pretty good work with non-human skeletons as well. So if you want to animate your dog running around, great, you can record your dog running around your backyard, and suddenly you've got an animation you can apply to a dog character in a game. And then I think the other one I'm really enjoying at the moment is called Motion. So it's a bunch of AI tools that generate animations for 3D characters, and it's really easy to make some stuff that's very customizable inside that in very short time frames.
That sounds very cool. It sounds fun to play with those and see what kind of different things you could create. That's really
Yeah,
neat.
it really is. It really is. The sillier you are in front of the camera for Plask, the more fun you can have with the actual output.
I love that. Sounds really fun. And one last rapid fire question from me, and then we'll close you out. If you weren't in gaming, what would you be doing instead?
Well, assuming that I can't go back in time and stop my injury happening when I was playing rugby,
Right.
I'm going to stick to my nerd tropes, and I would say that I would be a professional Warhammer 40,000 player. I love my little plastic miniatures. You can't see the other side of my camera, but my office is basically covered in little and not so little Warhammer 40,000 miniatures. If I wasn't in gaming, I'd be playing that 24/7 with my nerdy friends, rolling dice, and having a really good time doing it.
I love that. Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's interesting. Okay, great. So thank you, Callum, for sharing your insights on AI and its role in the gaming world. From your thoughts on the good and the bad of AI to how it can transform creative processes, your perspectives have been invaluable for anyone in the gaming ecosystem. So thanks again for that. If you enjoyed this episode, you can find Game Changers, The Future of Play on Spotify or on our website, sakura.qs.ai, and the details can also be found in the caption. Thanks so much. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Callum.